All right,
Hey.
Eric Pierce, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks,
to
bro.
the Rooftop Podcast, Episode 2. I'm here with Mr. Eric Pierce. Eric, thank you for joining us. First, I want to just say, have you ever played on a rooftop before? Is this your first time?
This is my first time recording on a rooftop.
This is your first time?
Yeah, and given that it was in my hometown, I felt like super psyched to just be playing out to the city.
Out into the world.
Yeah.
Just like having people being like, where the hell is that coming from?
Totally.
Yeah, we're like a mysterious noise that kind of just like is getting people's attention. So let's start with what you just played for us there. So what was that? Was that an original track? Tell us a little bit about what you just played.
Sure, this is an original song. I actually played all the instruments. I recorded them into the computer, and this is my first time like actually playing over it on the saxophone. So I felt like it was really liberating to have that, that outlet. You build the music, and then you play over it, and you get this whole experience with the headphones. The music is like,
I mean,
all around you.
We were trying to get your attention during the sound check, but you were just like zoned in, just with the headphones and stuff. So I don't blame you. Can you just tell us what the name of that song was and maybe where people could check it out if they can check it out?
So that song is, it was released on my YouTube channel, EP Sounds, and the song is called Little Sphere. It's about, how small this planet can be sometimes, and it was actually my first experience getting in touch with my spirituality. I grew up as a punk rocker. I didn't really believe in much, but sometimes music can really take you to that place where you get in touch with a higher power or some kind of so there's actually some lyrics to the song.
Okay.
And I'm playing the melody over that on the saxophone.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So let's, because I think you've had a pretty interesting journey musically, because from where you started and where you are now.
Yeah.
So I think we should maybe go back to that, where it all kind of started. I think if I remember correctly from my little research I did on you, your first instrument was a violin.
Yep.
That your mom gave you.
He's good.
Internet. There's a lot of stuff there. So tell me a little bit about what that was like. I think you said your family. Well, you let me know. Like, you came from a pretty musical family, and what was that like?
I had several family members that had played music over the years. Some were teachers, some were just played for fun. But my grandfather was a clarinet player, and I'd say I always look back to his clarinet playing when it comes to saxophone, because a wind instrument. And my grandmother was a piano teacher, and the list of people in the family goes way back. There's some story in the family. The story gets passed down that someone once upon a time used to play fiddle for the Tsar, and no one really knows who that is, but
right.
You look back and the funny thing is anyone you ask, there's some kind of musical history, whether it's through performance, whether it's through dance, whether it's through listening, and there's a whole historical element that we bring with us everywhere we go. This music that that is your music.
So you definitely come from a family of musicians, and do you think that kind of does it make it easier for someone to get into music when their family has sort of been around it? Absolutely,
because in any community, there's a place for music, and the family is really who can help an up and coming child or musician to pick up an instrument and play. So the family is really they play the role of finding where in the community to make the music, or what kind of music to hear.
Right. Did you guys ever do a Partridge Family kind of thing where you I think it's a Partridge Family. What's the one where they all play together like a family band? Did you ever experience any of that? Did you guys ever jam out together as a family?
I played with my aunt. She's an Irish flautist. She actually taught me to play the flute.
Okay.
I'd say mostly one-on-one. People in my family, my grandma played the bass. My father played the trumpet when I was younger. He showed, we had instruments up in the attic, and he took them down, and he said, oh, this is the trumpet, this is the guitar, right?
Yeah.
And that was always in the back, that's one of my earliest memories. It was in the background of, all the musical endeavors later on.
But it seems like your family and you were more woodwinds or like clarinet, trumpet, that sort of thing?
Mostly, yeah.
Mostly, and then somewhere along the line, I think you picked up guitar. And you kind of branched away. Were your family like happy to see that, or were they like, Eric, what are you doing? Like we play
adolescence
stuff.
is a time of exploration, and when you hear something that you like, you try it and you pick it up. I had a friend that came over. He brought his electric guitar. He played "Smells Like Teen Spirit," and I said, "That is the coolest thing I've ever seen." I have to admit, like it was a breach from what my family had done, but that's when I went out and I got my first. It was actually the first time I brought my money together and like saved up for a guitar, and it took me a long way. I started a couple bands, started writing songs, and I still carry those with me to this day. Yeah,
and for people who see Eric now as this like dignified man right here, when you were younger, you had pretty wild like hairstyles. I remember in high school you had a black patch and a blonde patch, and you bleached your hair, and so you were pretty punk rock. Did that like scare your family at all, or they're like, oh, Eric's just going through a phase or something?
It's adolescence.
It's adolescence, so it all comes with it. That self-discovery. You're trying things out.
It continues to evolve year after year, and I have to remind myself that while there's different chapters of the journey, there's certain parts that are going to remain consistent, and there's certain parts that I'm going to let go of. After playing that music, after trying that instrument, and all of that plays into who am I as like what does my inner musician look like? Yeah.
So it's been like a journey. So, so have you kept anything from that adolescent phase, from that punk rock phase? Because I know you said you didn't really care about much or whatever, and that makes a lot of sense, at that time. But is there anything that still resonates with you? Because now you've kind of moved on to jazz and other things, but that kind of punk rock feel, is that something that you still feel like goes with you?
Totally. My ears have kind of I've lost some hearing over the years, so that's a part of it. But another part is the freedom of rock and roll. There's a place for that is really, I hold that really close. Jazz is a whole nother place. It's like a, kind of more soothing, reflective, improvisational.
Yeah.
But yeah, punk rock is definitely like one of the, one of the early, searching in the world for me.
So you found something, but then it probably, at a certain point, you're like, all right, I think I've used what I can from this, and now it's time to kind of, you continued on your search. So what was that next, step? Take us through, you were punk rock, probably, through high school and stuff, and everything like that. And then what was sort of that next transition for you as you were trying to find that inner musician?
It's funny, because I remember being in high school, the punk rocker with, the two-tone hair, the spiked belt, all this, the scene, right, of punk rock. And I got introduced to the saxophone through ska, which is like it's a branch off punk rock.
Okay.
And I decided I want to be a saxophone player, right? So I pick up the saxophone, and the teachers, they all say, oh, listen to Coltrane, listen to Charlie Parker, right? And it was a foreign music. No one in my family had ever turned me on to jazz. So I remember when I got my first jazz record, it was Stan Getz. He's very soft. One of a close family friend said, oh, he would like Stan Getz. Let's get him into that, right? And I remember I used to drive around in my minivan with the Mohawk and all this, right? And I remember turning the radio at the lowest setting because I didn't want anyone to see me listening to jazz because I'm a punk rocker, right?
Yeah.
And that's been like an ongoing thing when different styles of music. It speaks to who are you, right? As a musician in this world, identity is a big part of why we do what we do and how we feel about what we do.
Do you think if you see there's a guy, I'm pretty sure he's a guy in New York. I don't know if you've ever seen him. He's got the long spiky. He's got one long spike. He's sort of like a fixture. You see him sometimes in Grand Central and stuff. Guy must be probably in his 60s or whatever.
I've seen him.
You've seen him, right?
I've talked to him. You've talked to him. Yeah.
Okay, so
I know who you're talking about.
Okay, yeah. He's just like one of those characters you see out there in New York. He's got the kilt and everything.
Yeah.
So someone like that. Do you think that's someone who just found their thing? I don't know if that guy's a musician, but do you think that's someone that just found their things? I'm gonna ride this out, because you went through a journey and you've kind of moved on. But someone who kind of stays in a scene for a long time. What do you think about that?
Music and culture go hand in hand. So the music in a certain culture, not just ethnic culture or like even a place in the world, but the culture of a music scene is something that, you know, it's supportive and it gives a place to go, right? Yeah. And it's similar to being part of the punk scene, being part of the jazz scene, being part of the folk scene, being part of the hip hop scene, right? There's some boundaries between these different genres, and sometimes we can get really into a scene, like to be in it as a punk rocker, to be in it as a jazz musician, to be in it as any kind of artist, right? Or person. Yeah. So the culture, it's so that someone like that, it's more than just the music and stuff. It's just become so much of identity. Yep. And so with you, it seems like identity has been something that you've been cultivating and trying to like find and stuff like that. So where do you, I mean, that sort of takes us more into the jazz thing now and how you've, ska is very interesting. So where do you, well, let's stay on ska for a second, because that does actually seem like an interesting bridge. Segue, because it is sort of punk. It's like, that kind of like upbeat, but you're playing woodwinds and that kind of thing. So we talked a little bit about that era too, and what was that like? Because then that ultimately is what led you to be more of a jazz player. At the end of the day, whatever kind of music I'm playing, I got to play from here. Okay. And all of the exploration, after I've listened to that music, after I've practiced that music, every time I get on the stage or anytime I pick up the horn, I listen to whatever I have to say to that, And I think this is a part of identity where we don't need to conform with something else, but you can conform with what's happening in you. Right. Okay? So that's something that takes time, and I don't know if there's any concrete, like, final, I found myself, right? But it is also something that can bring you closer to the present moment every day. What's happening now? Right. What do I have to say about what's happening now? How do I feel about it? What do I think about it? Yeah. What does it sound like? What does it look like? Yeah, I thought that's really well said, and I think it's interesting too. We spoke a little bit earlier where you said that you don't necessarily practice, you don't necessarily sit there and learn. I mean, you went to school for music, and I think, was it specifically jazz? Yeah. Okay, so you did. So you learned some musical theory. You've got your scales and stuff, but you don't necessarily practice. And I think that's pretty interesting because we had Julian White on the podcast before, and that guy's like, if I don't practice in like 2 days, like I feel like I suck, or I lose some of that. So so I like how you have your skills, you have your thing, and now it's just like, what am I going to say? And you're not necessarily thinking about like, oh, did I practice the song enough or anything like that. And I think that's a pretty interesting way to go about it. You do learn the songs though. I mean, you do learn the songs that you play, but it's just so locked in that when you play it, it's just Let me put it this way. Yeah. When you speak, right, are you thinking about what you have to say when you do it? You're just doing it. You just do it. Right. And some people need to prepare a speech in order to get in front of a bunch of people and share what they have to say, right? Some people can just get up and just say it, right? It's two styles. There's no one way to speak. But personally, I found that, I'm most in touch with, like, myself when I just let speak, it out. Right? So practicing, it's something that I had to do just like a toddler or anyone needed to do to learn to speak, right? We had to learn to formulate words. We had to observe our parents or the people around us. Yeah. We had to understand the meaning of words. Same thing with music. Yeah. And for me, it's funny because I could go 3 months without practicing, but the moment I pick that horn up, I'm back home. It's like I'm really feeling where I'm at. Yeah. If I'm practicing and I got it, like I'm playing something really intricate and I have to learn all the notes, I'm not always there because I've practiced it and I've learned it, but I haven't really absorbed it.
Right.
So when I'm going through my day, I always am singing in my head, just singing the notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't hear, like, I don't have any hallucination, but I can, like, I imagine playing all day long, everywhere I go. Mm-hmm. It's funny. So when I get back to the horn again, it's like back home.
So you kind of were practicing in a way.
I guess so.
You were like,
right.
yeah, I mean, but not necessarily with your hands on the horn. You were just sort of meditating. It seems very meditative.
Totally.
So take me through, like, you know, you're sitting at home. Obviously, a lot of us were sitting at home for a long time with like COVID and all that stuff. But when you're like by yourself, do you feel like a need to just, like you said, like, what do I have to say? What do I feel like today? Do you feel like you just want to? Are you attracted to it to just play something, to just like kind of express yourself? I'm just talking in the context of your home, not necessarily the practice, but just to kind of like jam out or something, or not so much. Like you just feel like whenever it's time, or you know what I mean?
I've spent a lot of time playing solo saxophone in the streets and all that. At this point, I feel like whenever I play, I like to play in a group setting or you know, some kind of social dynamic accompanied with the music. So. You know, whenever that opportunity presents itself, I sign up to play the gig, or and that's really meaningful.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, it's you can't monetize it, you know? Like, it's such a special thing to come together and play music. With people. Another
like interesting thing about you is I think you had like you just said, like you had your solo time with the instrument, and actually right on the street right down here, this is all kind of coming full circle.
Totally,
you would busk right there. I remember I would see you all the time just playing out there with your sax, and you started becoming like a fixture in South Norwalk and stuff too. So when you had that, when you were just sort of playing your music just out into the world, what made you want to? Because not everyone that's playing an instrument wants to be out in the world just playing like that. What was that? Why did you feel like? Because again, internet. I know that you had an interview about 10 years ago where you'd only been playing the horn for about 4 years. And then you're like, I'm gonna go out and just start playing. You know, and I think
1 year.
1 year.
1 year.
1 year, and you're already out on the street.
Yep, 1 year.
See, that takes some like courage and stuff. So why did you feel like the need to get out there and start playing?
I remember the feeling I had when I first started playing out there. And it was stage fright, you know? What are people going to think? What are people going to do? What, you know? Literally, like the first day I started, I don't know if they felt bad for me, but like people started donating. I was like, holy, like.
Yeah, they're just
I didn't expect this, right?
Yeah.
But the nice thing about playing solo is there was no right or wrong. There was I didn't even have to be playing a song. I would just like let it out. Whatever it is, I just play it. And whatever I'm feeling in the moment, that was what I played.
Yeah.
It could be in a certain key. It could be totally like off key. But it was okay.
Yeah.
And once I worked through that stage fright, it was a safe space, you know? And I met so many interesting people who would stop by, tell me their stories. It's kind of how I got into the world of music therapy. Hearing people's stories with music.
Right.
I went to volunteer in a hospital doing music therapy work.
Yeah.
And I was hearing the same kinds of stories. And that was something that really spoke to me, how music can really foster connection and conversation and sharing of stories without even, you know, needing to play an instrument.
Yeah. Because it goes just beneath. It's a language in itself, but it's such a deeper language that kind of hits at your core. And I liked how you said musical therapy, because that is a nice segue. That your musical journey is also, it's taking you to another place. I mean, you were learning the instruments, you know, and I think you're also saying, you know, you were trying to kind of do the whole professional musician thing and trying to like kind of make it and express your music out into the world. And then you, at somewhere along the line, I guess through these stories and through these connections, and you saw that maybe, you know, I can help people, yes, with my music, but there's another extension here, which is therapy. So
the idea of making it in music, you could look at it in a variety of different ways.
Right.
Are you getting paid to play, to pay the bills? Are you making it because you're making connections and you're a part of something? greater than yourself with a band? Or are you helping people in some way through the music? Is your music meaningful to someone else? And it's funny because, you know, personally, I'm not someone who has like a big following of, you know, fans. But those moments where someone reaches out and said, hey, I saw your video, or I heard your album, and we were listening to it, and like we had like a blast. A few people have told me that over the years. And at that moment, it doesn't matter to me how many people. If one person got something out of it, it was enough. You know, so I feel I made it. You know. Because
you've made an impact on someone, on something, you know? And, I mean, but you also must kind of feel, too, you know, musical theory is a little bit different because you're not playing necessarily your music, but you're kind of making these impacts on people's lives. And so can you just share a little bit about, like, what that journey was like to get... Well, first of all, why musical therapy? Not everyone that picks up a instrument is going to be like, I'm going to, like, help people with this. Like,
my aunt is an art therapist. So when I was younger, we used to visit. She was working in a homeless shelter. We would visit, and I remember on Christmas Day we were giving out blankets, and I saw her working with, you know, some of the residents there with her clients, and I felt like, wow, this is a really great way to share art, to share community, to, you know, and so that was kind of in the back of my mind as I was becoming a professional musician, that there was some other way to give the music, and in a way that could be healing.
How long have you been a musical therapist?
Let's see. I did my first, what do you call it, volunteer work in 2011.
Okay.
So I've been doing it ever since. I've worked at several hospitals throughout New York City. And I mainly work in psychiatry and geriatrics.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's been my kind of journey.
And have you seen, like, do you have any anecdotes or anything like that about moments where you really saw, like, someone turn a corner or anything like that through the therapy, through the music?
There's different ways that people get involved in music. You could write a song. You could listen to the music. You could improvise a solo without any prior knowledge. Or you could learn a song and play it, right, or perform it. So I usually look to those different, you know, areas to find out what's going to be helpful. Right? Because some people, they're naturally listeners. And a lot of times that can be viewed as like being on the back burner. You're not the musician, right? You're the listener. But at the end of the day, you're participating in the music. There's no music without a listener. The improvisers, just making it up as you go, it's not as, you know, memorable for someone who doesn't really understand what they're hearing, right? Whereas like you write a song, that's something that you know, is remembered and recreated, and you know, or if you play someone else's song, you make your own rendition of the music, right? So my clients, I pay attention to what is it that is, like, which area are they like focused on, right? And I can support usually with listening. What are you getting out of listening? Or what, you know, what's the meaning of that? If you're expressing by recreating music, what's the meaning in that? Oftentimes connecting with another artist. Sometimes I'll run a group with clients and we will play along with the radio. And it's like we're there with the artist, or the artist is there with us in the music. We can join them. So we'll play some instruments along with the album.
Cool.
Songwriting comes straight from your musical background, your experience, whatever it is that, you know, you want to tell the world, right? You put it into a song.
So you have different just tools, like a toolkit that you can use. And so you've been working at this for quite a while now, and recently you've created something new, FYI, for your inner musician.
Find your inner musician,
right? And so is that sort of like we spoke earlier? It's like taking those skill sets that you've learned in musical therapy, but then just kind of trying to create a community outside of that, and just maybe get everyone kind of getting more in tune with themselves and with the music, using music to get in tune.
Music therapy has a tendency toward, you know, clinical work. So there's a branch of music therapy called community music therapy that tends to get out of the clinical setting and bringing music to, you know, anyone, any person. So FYI musician is the main idea with that is breaking the boundary between musician and non-musician. It says you're a musician, I'm a musician, everybody's a musician. The question is, what does your musician sound like? What does your musician feel like? What does your musician have to say? You know?
Yeah.
And this is you know, it's just a way for us to come closer together in communities to share music and not have that divide between musician and non-musician.
Yeah.
So that way the audience can be just as involved in the music making process.
Yeah.
And you know, the band is just in touch with the audience, listening to whatever the energy is. You know.
And what do you hope for just down the road that it'll turn into?
So the idea is to have some kind of practices that people can try to kind of get a sense of what does my inner musician look like. Finding your inner musician. Sometimes that could be a group process. Sometimes that could be a personal process. But I'm hoping to put out some kind of content that people can share their experience and also, you know, kind of open up the door to embracing music regardless of what people might have told you early on. Oh, you're a natural. Oh, you have what it takes, right? Or oh, you are tone deaf.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
All these things that you might hear when you're growing up, they don't have to be so fixated or you know, fixed.
Yeah.
You know?
You can kind of like get that out of your head and just kind of start like fresh and just with a new perspective that like
we all have strengths, we all have limitations, so called. And being a musician is always going to involve working through both of those.
So you want this community for basically people can discover their inner musician, they can have these practices that or these practice these things that can help them get in touch with their inner musician. I'm curious because I saw one of your techniques, which was a humming technique, and I think that that's an interesting choice because it requires no instrument, doesn't even require you to necessarily be able to sing. So I was thinking maybe that we could try that.
All right,
Here we go. Maybe we could try that because I thought that might be a cool thing to do. So maybe before we do it, just kind of explain like kind of humming, like where that comes from or why that's a technique.
So this is something that came out of my clinical work. And it's something that, you know, I was thinking about the pandemic that we're going through, and you know, what is it that we can do while we're in quarantine, while we're not going out to hear music live, when we're not coming together with other musicians to practice. And humming is something that, you know, you go back as far as you can think in humanity, and you have the voice, you know? It's right by your heart. And whenever you hum, you have your, you know, the vibration from your heart just coming out. So I was thinking, you know, there's a lot of tension in the household when everybody's asked to stay at home. You know, there's going to be a breaking point. There's going to be a lot of things unsaid that lead to stress, that lead to, you know, tension in the family, you know, tension in the fam.
Definitely.
So humming is something that we can use for harmony. When two people hum together, when three, I hear my dog.
It's okay.
You know.
He just wants to be part of the podcast. Maybe we'll get a little intro afterwards. So that's actually because, like, again, it's something that's right here. It's a vibration. It kind of cuts through the bullshit. I don't know. Maybe we could try it, and maybe people who are watching, if they they want to try this technique, and we'll see if the tension in the fam can dissipate a little bit as we go. So tell me what we need to do for the humming technique.
So you may hear consonants or you hear dissonance. Consonance is when we're in harmony and it sounds very, you know, kind of like it works. Dissonance is where it's uncomfortable, right? In humming, it's called musical humming, the technique. You can just let whatever harmony just kind of be,
Mm-hmm.
and it will change. You can stay with the same note, you can change the note, but the idea is to bring some harmony to discord, you know?
Right.
So if we try this together,
Okay.
we'll get a sense of, you know, where we're at as two people coming together in the music.
Mm-hmm.
And it bypasses a lot of the thinking and the feelings that kind of go into anything outside of this interaction that's happening.
Right. Right.
We're very here and now.
Right. And I feel like the podcast too makes me, you are kind of here and now too, because it's like where I'm just focused on you, you're focused on me, we're here talking.
Totally.
And so so let's get a level deeper. I'm ready to do some humming, and hopefully people who are watching, you try this at home as well.
All right.
Okay, so what do? We just start?
Yeah, just take a deep breath.
Okay.
Just try that, and whenever you're ready to hum, you can hum as loud or as soft as you need.
Mm-hmm.
It could be audible, it could be inaudible, but the idea of just getting in touch with your vibration, and for our vibrations to be coming into contact, is the experience. So.
All right.
So. So you might notice your body adjusting to the harmony. You might notice your mind getting more focused on, you know, this moment, this interaction.
Yeah.
How is that?
It was cool.
Anything?
I feel like when we hit that, it's like we were just on the same like wavelength, especially like we kind of hit it at the same level at first. And then I did sort of, as we kept going, I was like, all right, I'm going to just do a low hum. Like, you know, I did sort of feel like I want to do something different. Yeah. But then since that wasn't necessarily in harmony, I just naturally wanted to just go back up to you and stuff. So it was cool. And then also because it's getting a little darker with the focus, I was like, I also was just kind of getting into like this weird zone where like you're kind of like, your face was also kind of like changing a little bit too, because you get into this deeper focus. Yep. But no, that was cool. That was cool. And I'm sure when you get a bunch of people, do you usually get a bunch of people doing that? That must be pretty powerful.
Our groups in psychiatry are anywhere from 2 to 18.
Wow.
So if you imagine 18 people, there's a music therapy technique called toning that comes from, not just humming, but using the voice as a, you know, for harmony between people. Yeah. So.
And because like you said, I mean, you were started off a lot solo. You went into the group and to the experience with people, and it seems like it's taking you to a communal part, you know, where you it's a vehicle kind of to connect with other people and connect with a community. I mean, you went through your punk rock phase, and I'm sure you had your punk rock friends and stuff, and then you were doing your busking, which was alone and everything, but then you kind of found yourself in a communal thing, which now it's like you see that maybe as the only or one of the real way you want to experience music is with kind of in that communal sense, like with a band or with
wherever I am. Whatever experience I come upon, that's what I want to be in, you know? Yeah. And if it's not one that I want to be in, then I'll keep going. Keep searching, right? Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah. What does that feel like to you when you feel like you've kind of found something? I mean, is it just an intuition thing? Is it just like, how does that?
It's a safe space. It's where anything that's happening off the bandstand, off of the recording, whatever it is can sit on the shelf. while I do this.
Yeah.
Or while we do this,
Yeah.
right? You might have experienced that a little bit in the humming, where you know we're in the humming right now,
Yeah.
and it's meditative, it's
Totally.
mindful,
Yeah.
it's you know, it helps us to build some coping
Yeah.
with whatever stress is going on, not
Yeah.
to escape,
Yeah.
but to not be overwhelmed with thoughts, not be overwhelmed with feelings, to simplify.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of thoughts that go around when we're trying to pick what note to hum.
Yeah.
But part of the process is to sit into the humming,
Yeah.
you know, like get into it. And that's the idea with, you know, in the pandemic, how do you cope with being in quarantine,
Yeah.
being stuck in one place?
Yeah.
Music is something that moves. Music is something that, you know, it's got a lot of feeling to it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, even myself, you know, with this podcast, I am kind of thinking like, okay, the questions and are we hitting on the things and stuff like that. So even within this moment, getting there just kind of broke me away, even from like my duties as maybe, you know, the host of this thing or whatever, just to kind of get more into the moment, because, man, I mean, you know, there's so many distractions and things and thoughts, and you know, we can go on about the things that, you know, we see day to day.
And one of the things with this pandemic, there's a lot of people who are, you know, out of work
Yeah.
and kind of forced to ask themselves, what's the next step, right?
Yeah.
What path do you see yourself in the next couple years, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who were not happy doing the jobs they were doing.
Yeah.
Maybe it pays the bills, but, you know, it's not in line with, you know, your calling or what you feel you have to give.
Yeah.
So there could be a silver lining there
Yeah.
with, you know, being able to start fresh, being able to get more aligned with yourself in this world, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lifelong journey, but,
Yeah.
you know.
It is. But music, like you've said, has been a great tool for you to find that. And I hope people try these techniques, at least, you know, especially if they still find themselves out of work and questioning and stuff, at least, you know, having that moment to just reflect or be with themselves.
And be with families, and be with the people who are closest. You know, a lot of times work brings us away from that. It has us searching for something better than what we have, or people better than who we have, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Quarantine really forces us to be with the people that we're with, right?
Yeah.
You know, I heard a story. My aunt, the art therapist, was saying that some of the kids she worked with, you know, the support system at home was not so good. And when quarantine happened, the families were together. The behavior actually improved.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. It's like a blessing and you know, kind of a curse, because, you know, we do need to like work and this and that. But it was a reminder, you know, and I think that's like mindfulness and the humming and stuff. Like there's something deeper going on than your day-to-day work and whatever you're kind of going through. And even the people that you've known for your whole life, like it's like getting to know them again.
Yep.
You know, or just reconnecting.
Yeah. And beyond the family, you know, the neighborhood.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Beyond the neighborhood, a city.
Yeah.
Or a town.
Yeah.
You know? Or a state. Or a country. You know?
Yeah.
Or a world.
A world.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
We can come to grips with where we are.
Yeah.
Because it's a big part of coming to grips with who we are.
Yeah.
And how we are. Right?
Yeah.
It's a relationship.
Yeah.
It's a process.
Yeah.
It's not just a fixed, you know, entity.
Yeah.
It's changing.
It's definitely changing, and I think people too have kind of a responsibility to themselves too, to get more in touch, because if more people do it,
Yep.
and more people, you know, it's kind of has this effect where
Absolutely.
hopefully we can get to a place that's not so divided and stuff. And I mean, I blame that a lot on the media and stuff that we,
Yeah.
you know, and but that also comes with knowing that that's not really reality, you know, as much.
It's an avoidance of where we are and what we have.
Yeah.
A lot of times, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to find something better.
Mhm.
We're trying to show something better than what is actually happening.
Yeah.
Right.
And what's happening is stuff like this, these moments where
Yeah.
it's just simple, it's just two people or a group of people just enjoying the moment with themselves. And honestly, sometimes that's really all there is and all you need. I know we
Yeah.
just complicate life, and music has a way of cutting through that.
Yeah.
And I thank you, Eric, very much for you know, letting us in on your musical journey, and for all the people that you've probably touched with your therapy and your music and all that stuff. And I hope people check out FYI, or tell us the Instagram handle or whatever, or like.
Yeah, FYI Musician.
FYI
You can
Musician.
find it on Instagram. We have a Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
The website, FYImusician.com.
Mm-hmm.
Find your inner musician.
Yeah.
So it's still early in the process.
Right.
It's been a big idea,
Yeah.
but I'm looking to keep pushing this and you know, bring the music therapy, bring my music, you know, musician,
Yeah.
professional musician
Yeah.
history, and this is something I would really like to, you know,
to get going,
to
and I
see
think,
happening.
and and I
Yeah.
think it's important, and also follow him on EP Sounds too, as well,
Yeah.
on Instagram. Just support him. I mean, he's a good guy. He's got good ideas, and and he's just trying to make the world better by making himself better, I think is like a good way of putting it. And so I want to thank you again. I know it's getting a little dark now, but I think I would love to hear we didn't really talk about this so much, but I think people will just hear it, that you've also you're trying to expand saxophone a little bit. We all heard like that classic sax sound, but you started playing around with the little pedals and the little effects and kind of changing things up a bit, which I think is pretty cool. So I think people will enjoy a little bit of that, a little bit of you putting a little new spin on the sax.
Nice.
So Eric, thank you so much.
Thanks, Paulo.
And go ahead and
right.
take it away.
Cool.